Welcome. I'm J. Michael Silver, and this is Foundational Steps, the show where I talk with people about the choices they've made and how they get to where they are in life now. I've got a great conversation for you today. In this episode, I'm talking with my friend Nick Ialacci. Nick is a top real estate agent in Los Angeles. We get deep in this episode. We talk about his coming out, his life partner, unexpectedly raising a child, and a lot more. Links to Nick are in the show notes and timestamps for everything that came up. Please support the show by leaving a comment or a review. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And check out our affiliate links in the show notes. Might be something valuable. Enjoy the conversation. All right, cool. Welcome to the show, Nick.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, this is awesome. Tell me if you could just kind of, where did it all begin for you? Where do you feel your journey began? And I'll clarify that a little bit because, I oftentimes will say 4 years old for me,
Okay.
like that's where I kind of had an awareness of certain things. My grandfather started telling me crazy stories and my imagination just started going wild. So, what's your earliest memory that where like you felt like, oh my God, like I'm a conscious being,
Right.
doing life?
Um, that's a good question. I would say, probably most significant, definitely elementary years, probably third grade. And this is specific situation, but it's what I can pin down to. Because in a nutshell, probably adolescence, high school, like where my journey probably authentically began,
Mm-hmm.
but specifically third grade was probably the moment where I realized, like, okay, being in tune with my thoughts was different because I think I identified at that moment, like, oh, I'm gay, like and that's specific to me. So that's
That's
where
yeah.
what I point out to, but I didn't really know. That's just where the journey began of figuring out, what does this mean? Like, oh, these feelings towards a best friend that are just my thoughts are just, oh, it's my best friend, like whatever. I
So
think,
it was at that moment then you recognized or realized that your thoughts, your feelings were your own and they were unique to you.
yeah, mhm,
That's
yeah.
a pretty powerful moment.
But it's not really look until I look back and I'm like, that was the
Yeah.
identifying moment was third grade.
Well, I mean, you're raising a son now, right?
Right.
So, I mean, you can see that because I've worked with kids. I mean, I started, teaching kids swimming when I was still a kid. I was working, 15. I was, teaching kids who were, 5 years old, and I could see an awareness in their eyes. I could see that they understood me, but I could also see that they didn't have the context or the words to be able to communicate.
Right.
And so I kind of feel like that's what you're sharing is you had an awareness that now you can very clearly put words to, but at the
Right.
time it was just this amorphous thing that was
Right.
yet to be fully defined by your ability to speak about it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And now, like you said, my kid is around that age. He's in second grade going into third. So you definitely can see the curiosity, the questions, and
Mm-hmm.
just about life in general.
Yeah.
So now looking back, I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense, you know.
How old
But
is how old is third grade?
8, so
8.
he's 7 turning 8,
Okay.
yeah.
So he's right
And so
there.
that's about, yeah, yeah. But so really though, that was the start, indicator of the journey, but the discovery wasn't really until high school, or middle school to high school, which is like most people. But
Mm.
I would say that kind of is where the journey started, because there was a lot of inner dialogue. I mean, as most people go through in that situation, but there was just a lot of, you know, just a lack of true identity, because I didn't know, like at that point in time I wasn't sure if like that inner self of who I was really who I was or who I wanted to be, but like there was just a lot of conflict. So even though I had a solid group of friends from the age of like kinder years through to middle school and high school, there was this always this like feeling of pretending or being fake or like
Mm,
not like like having friends for 10 years or 5 years, let's say from middle school to senior year, and them not really knowing because I did. So that's for me where my journey started, because at least in that aspect, and that's just like one aspect of my life, was like I felt like they didn't really know who I
mm.
was, and so I was just, going through the motions of like they know me to a point, and it's just like you live. I at least lived every day like wanting it to just like wanting to start fresh. So
Yeah.
that was kind of like for me, was every time I got to a point where I felt uncomfortable, I just like wanted to start over. So yeah.
That's really interesting. And I kind of feel there's a there's a universal truth in there as far as like managing our self-talk. And
Right.
whatever whatever our self-talk is, which, depending on, your journey, and everyone's journey, it could be incredibly negative, it can be incredibly positive, it can be a mix. I think probably more common than anything else, it's going to be a mix. Hopefully, at least, because I feel like if it's just all negative, that's no good. And if it's all positive, that's probably no good either. But did you develop any techniques, or did you like, was there anything along, those first few years where you heard someone say something, or you read something, or that you just kind of figured out for yourself that made that managing that self-talk easier?
Definitely not in high school. It
Mhm.
really wasn't until my early to mid 20s. So high school was like, so I grew up Catholic. Like my
Mhm.
mom was very, very Catholic, and the environment that I grew up in, it was great and everything. Like again, on the outside, I had a big support system. I had awesome family. I had really cool friends. I was in athletics. Like it was, everything was great. And the funny like twist to it is I have a twin brother,
Mm.
and who is also gay. And so we always
Identical?
shared fraternal, but like
Fraternal.
we were really close. And
Okay.
so it let's just start, at least in that aspect, we always knew somehow that like that we were both gay, but it was just never really talked about. And so
Wow.
in a sense, it was this lack of feeling alone because someone knew, but at the same time, everyone else didn't. So it really wasn't until after high school, going into college, where I was like getting more comfortable with myself, um, because that lack of like identity and lack of just being able to say like, yeah, this is who I am. And I think it's so cool that nowadays it seems so very different, but
Yeah.
then, even though it seems like things are progressing, it just wasn't, at least in the environment where I grew up, it just wasn't accepted. I just knew it wasn't.
So this is
So
kind of curious to me. And this is, I think, maybe just my personal curiosity, but your twin brother and you didn't talk about being gay, or being aware of that for.
not until high school, and it was
Mm.
just like I mean, we talked about it, but it was just very surface level, like nothing like deep, nothing like,
Yeah.
even though we're twins and we talked about everything, like it was never anything like personal, like, hey, how are you feeling about this? Like we still didn't really know. I think we
Yeah.
both truly were trying to like just stuff that feeling down. um yeah, like again,
Is it, I
just
mean,
like a
your
lot of.
twin has got to be the closest person on earth to you, I would think. So that, not being able, not feeling comfortable, or knowing how to speak about some of your most, um I mean, unfortunately, I do think this is an unfortunate reality of the world we live in. Our sexuality defines us, to some
Right.
extent. And I really hate that about our culture currently, because to me, it's like that shouldn't be anyone's business, and it shouldn't
Right.
matter what it is. But for whatever reason, that's part of our culture. So something that our culture says defines you, you didn't feel comfortable talking to one of the closest people on earth at the, that, I mean, that says something about our culture that's like needs to be
Right.
fixed in my mind. But so I want to get back to the self-talk a little bit, because if you didn't have any techniques, in leading up to, from third grade through high school, what did you do? Did you channel that through sports? I mean, how did you, if you didn't have any like a mental practice or anything, how did you deal with those thoughts and feelings?
I,
And
I don't think I managed it very well, to be honest. I was, and that's what's interesting. The reason why I bring it up as a factor that I value as important is because it shaped a lot of other characteristics, character traits that I had. I mean, I was a shy kid. I was not confident.
Mhm.
Again, on the outside, like they're like, it's like there's Nick. He has so many friends, whatever. But in the ins, like I was just shy. I was
Yeah.
not confident. I wasn't vocal. I wasn't a leader, not whatsoever. I would follow. And I think a lot of that, the reasons were because I was like, I wasn't too sure about what my inner feelings or anything was. So it was
Mhm.
easier to just follow. My best friends were the most outgoing people, in athletics. Like I had direction. I
Right.
had someone or people to just like mimic and follow. And I did that all through middle school, all through high school. And that's what carried me until it got to a point where, so it's funny. So going out of high school, everybody, all of my friends and my whole network, they all were going to these certain schools and community colleges, and I stayed local. But I so badly wanted to start over, so I chose to go to a college that no one really from high school, like a small percentage of high school
Mm.
people that I knew went, so I could specifically start over. Ironically, my brother went there as well, but it was like me, him, and maybe like one of our best friends and a couple other people.
And
But
did you talk to your brother about that?
oh, we both for sure knew at that point that that's what we wanted to do.
Okay.
More specifically, less about the school and the programs and this and that, but to start over.
And
Um,
okay.
and again, not necessarily directly towards like, oh, well, now I'm going to be comfortable and come out and this and that, but just like clean slate,
Yeah.
get rid of like, and at the time I didn't know it was negative energy, toxic surroundings, you're a product of your environment. But looking back, I'm like, that's definitely what it was. So it was this like crave and this desire to just like start over and be more authentic. But then it didn't necessarily pan out that way. I mean, we went to the same college and we both were like, okay, you're going to get a separate degree and I'm going to get this degree and we're not going to do the same things because as twins, your identity is one.
Mhm.
And it's cool for a while and then at some point, and that was our point of time where we're like, I want to do my thing, you want to do yours. And it's funny, I always tell twins that I come up with or parents that I see that have kids, I'm like, twins are awesome. Like they're always going to be the closest siblings. Like they will have a relationship that no one else has. But there's always going to be a point in time where they go off and veer
They
off
do
and
their
do their
thing.
own
Yeah.
thing, and then they'll come back. So in college, we did that, and our relationship got a little bit rocky for certain things. But then we came back, and now we're tight again in our
Nice.
30s. But so college was that. I would say like college was then the next journey for me was starting over, starting fresh, like and it wasn't really specifically geared towards my sexuality or like, coming out because I didn't. It was just finding myself, discovering what I like, the type of person that I wanted to
So
be.
how
That's
did
when I
you, I'm sorry to interrupt, but
no,
I want you to go a little bit deeper on how did you find what you liked? Like, what did you do? Like, what were the things that you did to discover those things?
so it's funny, it's simple. Like for me specifically, I was like, I don't know what I want to do as far as a career or a job. Um, so how do I choose what major I wanted? And
Right.
I got into kinesiology. Really, it was simple for me. I was like, I like sports and I like learning about the human body. And I don't know, let's see where it goes. And so I chose it for that reason, just kind of very sporadically. I mean, honestly, I think it was coming up on my sophomore year and I had to choose a major. And I was like, that one. And I did fall in love with it. That's when I started to get into fitness and start like, again, I was a skinny kid, like most people, like I'm sure everyone has their journey, but I was not confident and
Mhm.
I didn't know what I was doing. And our campus had this new gym and it was incredible. It was always intimidating, but I was like, I'm just going to do it. So got into kinesiology, started learning how to work out, and it's just like finding a passion for it. And then from there, just like building my own friend group, confidence, and the types of things that I was learning about intrigued me. So yeah, I just like built a solid surrounding that I felt like at the time was at least a little bit more of what I wanted when I was in high school.
So to some extent, you kind of found something that interests you and that you were comfortable with, and then you just compounded that and just kept on, adding to, okay, well, I can do this too, and steered clear of things that you weren't sure about.
Right. Yeah.
And did you end up getting a degree in kinesiology?
Yeah.
Okay. And
Yeah.
so did you have, because I know what you do now, and it's not kinesiology.
Yeah.
So did you have a path towards being like a physical therapist or trainer or something?
I did. So the journey, it's a little different for me. So throughout college, so my parents, like, uh, again, great upbringing. My parents both had great jobs and this and that, but just like
Mhm.
anybody, they went through their fluctuations of me as a kid viewing the power and importance of finances. So they had
Mhm.
money, they lost money. They had great jobs that, they've had for years and years and years, and then they've lost it, just like lots of people in certain environments. And so I grew up viewing that. And I think that I attached myself towards like, okay, whatever it is that I want to do, I do want to love, but I need to make money. Like I
Yeah.
prioritize, like that's what I want to do. And so um kind of like backtracking a little bit. So throughout college, so after high school, jumping into college, so from like 18 to 23, actually my brother and I lived, we lived with our parents in a one bedroom apartment, like very close to campus because things for them went like very downhill.
Oh, wow.
And so we ended up being the main support system for them. And along with that comes a lot of emotional weight that you don't realize that adults have and your parents have,
Yep.
whether it's depression or this or that, and shifting from, we're the parents, we're supporting our kids to now
Yeah.
how we can't
Especially
pay
at
for
that
our kids.
age.
We at that age, right? Like we can't pay for our kids' college. This is like we're putting our kids in this type of situation, and there you could feel like the resentment from a parent-child side of aspect of not
Mhm.
resentment towards one another, but just towards them defeat and whatnot. And so there
Mhm.
became an obligation to like we have like me and my brother had to like carry this weight of like we have to do this not just for ourselves but like we have to be responsible, we have to make money. So throughout college, I mean, I was working a job, a serving job. I was going to school full time. I worked on campus at the library in between classes, and then I was interning at an athletic training facility to try and like work my way up towards doing something with my career or with my degree. So I was doing a lot, and then my brother was doing a lot on his end too. So um, that's definitely like a journey in itself because
Mhm.
there was just a lot of like mental emotions that were tied to it.
So how did you deal with that at that point in time? I mean, because that kind of gets back to the self-talk question, because now that you're having to go from childhood to adulthood with no buffer, which
Right.
I mean, I do think that probably used to be the way things worked because, hey, you're 18, go have a life. I mean, teenagers only as a concept have existed, I think, since the 50s or something like that.
Right. Right.
So, but we are very steeped in this idea of this buffer between childhood and adulthood, and it seems like yours was kind of cut short. So
Yeah, yeah.
was there obviously there's additional stresses, but like, did you just ignore it? Did you push it to the side?
It was definitely an oblivion. It was definitely, it was like, all right, you just have to do it. I didn't want to think about what life, like, I didn't want to think about, I wasn't mature enough to think about, okay, how do I better everybody? How do we get out of this situation? This isn't what it should be, and that's
Mhm.
okay. The current situation, it happens. Um, and let's just learn from it, and figure out ways to get my mom back on her feet, or my dad. I didn't know. So the only
Right.
thing that I knew that I could control was what I could do, which was carry the weight of everything, and my brother as well. But
Wow.
me personally, and at that point, that's where I shifted from, I think, being a follower to a leader because I had to. And so that's where I identified the characteristic traits for me shifting, because I knew that I had to do it. But there was a lot of like learning lessons there that again, it's not until now I look back where I'm like, oh, okay, that was a defining moment. Like, I would have done this, that, or the other. And it's just things that you go through and you grow through. But in that time, I was like, I don't even want to. I had blinders on.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm just working, I'm just paying the bills, like. And you go through these personal experiences where you're like, I don't like this. I'm in college, so
Yeah.
parents are away.
Life. I
I,
mean,
I,
there's
I'm like,
always things.
yeah, you have a friend come over. Like, I remember certain experiences, right? Like, to those moments of like being ashamed of that living situation and
Mhm.
whatever. Whereas now as an adult, I'm like, I don't, those define me. Like, I'm not ashamed to just like, you know, discuss those experiences. But in
Mhm.
that time, I'm like, yeah, I don't want people to know. I mean, we a one bedroom apartment in like basically the middle of university, so we're surrounded by university kids and stuff. So like coming home was like a hurry up shuffle, like not wanting to see friends, like see your parents leave, because then they're like, wait a minute, that's a one bedroom, like, can I come over? And just like dealing with all, I was then felt like I was back in high school of like
Yeah.
having to like hide certain things, and I didn't like it. So really, and there's like two folds to it. It came to a point where then my brother and I started talking, and it's like, okay, what are we going to do to change this? Like, we have to do something. Like, what are we going to live with they going to live with us? Or are we going to live with them forever?
Mhm.
This is from 18 to 23. Um, there were moments of frustration of like trying to push them to get back on their feet, but at the same time, were the ways that you handled it then weren't necessarily the ways that to handle it now, where you can just
Yeah.
communicate, you can problem solve, have a conversation. It came out in frustration because you're still kind of you're growing as an adult. And so I wouldn't even say there was a defining moment, but there were conversations leading up to identifying this isn't where we want it to go, and like, what can we do? And a lot of those conversations came to a halt because they were just like, there's nothing we can do. What are they going to do? Like, how are they going to do this? How are they? And it was excuse after excuse, like making excuses for other people because you're
Right.
in denial for the fact that you can't control what someone else does. They just have to step up to the plate. You
Right.
can only do so much until they start to help themselves. And it
That's
wasn't in,
such a valuable moment though. I mean, you probably couldn't recognize it at the time, but obviously you see it now, understanding that there's really nothing you can do for anyone else other than be there for them and be a support. But if they're not willing to stand up, they ain't ever standing up. Like,
right, right. Yeah. And then, so to go back to your question, it was like, okay, what do I want to do? And everything revolved around this kinesiology degree. Was okay, I don't want to be a PE teacher. Like, no, like, just with all respect, because my values were, how do I make money to get out of the situation?
right.
So it was like, I can't choose these certain career paths that just don't identify with making money, because
Yeah.
money was the only thing that I associated to freedom. So I was like, okay, I can do physical therapy, but how am I going to pay for school? And then so I kind of figured out that route. And then so here's a key defining moment for me, which in this time when I share it, I had a different feeling towards it, where I look back, I'm like, it totally didn't happen that way. So I met with a counselor, and I was like, so I'm really interested in becoming a sports agent. Like, I love basketball. I'm a basketball fanatic. Like, I
Mhm.
really think that I can do well with it. And I don't know anything about it, but I want to explore that. Like, can I use my kinesiology degree? Like, I don't know, like, just level with me, just like, how do I do this? It's just an interest that I have.
Mhm.
And in that time, I felt like this counselor who was supposed to be guiding me totally dissuaded me from choosing that career path. In my mind, I interpreted it as he was very like, it's impossible. You're never gonna be able to do it. But this is basically what he said. He was like, okay, look, is family important to you? And at that time, especially, I was like, yes, I can't see. He's like, do you ever see yourself moving away from family? And especially at that time, I'm like, no. Like, how? No, I have to be close to family. He's like, okay, well, just bear in mind that a lot of the like sports agents is a lot of law, and a lot of the best
Mhm.
law schools are on the East Coast. So are you comfortable moving to the East Coast, away from family? I'm like, I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think I would ideally like
And
to. So that was just
and you were in
a
California at the time?
and I was in California.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was a factor. And then he was like, it's a lot of hard work, not a lot of like, but even though he was just speaking authentically and speaking in reality, which at this point in time I very much appreciate when people do so, at the time I was hearing negative, 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 and maybe my self-talk was already talking myself out of doing it. So I left that situation telling everyone, I can't believe this counselor, like, he totally like shot down my dreams. But like, he was like, yeah, you can't do it, it's impossible, it's a lot of money, it's this, that. And I just fully convinced myself that he convinced me to not do it, and had he not, I probably would have pursued it. And then I look back, I'm like, yeah, a lot of it was just me
Mhm.
stopping myself from pursuing that. So
No, do you think I'm just curiosity, but do you think that you didn't actually want to be a sports agent, and that was just kind of like ooh, that I like sports and that looks like a lot of money, and it was more of the glitz
yeah,
of, and not actually having any genuine interest in it? Because I feel like
I
knowing you, I feel like if you really wanted that, I feel like you could have easily done that. You know what I
totally,
mean?
back then, again, the lack of confidence kind of carried through. So
you,
I was
you, you broke
in
up just so back then,
oh,
lack of confidence, and then you broke up for half a second.
the lack of confidence just kind of carried forward with me just through anything. So I'm
Mm,
seeing friends that were in the same shared degree, kinesiology, and they know what they want to do with it. I'm seeing my brother in certain, career field, and he seems to know what he wants to do, and other
mhm,
people. And I'm like, in reality, I don't know what I want to do. I picked this degree on a whim. I'm paying for college on my own. I'm inching towards the time frame of graduating from university, and I don't know what I want to do with my degree. And
right.
so I think it was grasping for straws to try and identify falsely at the time, like, no, that's what I want to do. Like, I know that that's what I want to do, when I really didn't. Because even I can tell you for a fact, graduating, I did try everything that I possibly could do with my
Mhm,
degree, and I fell into passions, and I found things that I didn't like, and I exhausted my options to try and do what I can to work with it. But even at that time, I was like, I don't know what I want to do. I didn't really know what I wanted to do as a career until I got into real estate, but like a year or so after. So probably, I mean, 27 or 28 or
mhm,
something like that. So for me, I felt like a lag. I felt like delayed. So after graduating college, and the tandem to that is like, that's where I met my partner, and Aaron, who I'm in a relationship with, where it's coming on 11 years. And so at this journey of coming close to graduating college, having that fear of, now I'm graduating college. Now I'm not just graduating high school, but now I'm graduating college. How am I going to disassociate myself from like this living situation and having my parents being dependent on me? And how am I going to have my own life after college? And that was worrisome. And now I'm in this new relationship. I'm not out. Like, my parents still think he's my best friend.
Oh, wow.
And like all of these feelings tied towards like, I want change. I want to do like, I just want to do what's like truly for me, but I can't in all these different categories. And so they came to a point in time where my brother was in a new relationship. I was in a new relationship. We knew, but our parents didn't know. And we very few, actually no friends, like no friends even knew at that point. So we were still kind of like hiding that
Yeah, I feel like that's an enormous amount of pressure just in and of itself, because anytime you're hiding anything, it's anxiety ridden. Like,
right.
I mean, even if it's wonderful news, like I found the person I'm going to be with for the rest of my life, and you're keeping that, like, that's wonderful news, but that's an enormous amount of anxiety.
Right. And so actually those two people were the only, like me individually and Aaron and my brother individually and his person were the only first two people to be honest with, like, hey, this is our living situation, this is our family situation, because I saw it going somewhere. So I did not want to start off with like a false reality of like, hey, by the way, so it was actually him in a sense who was like more of the positive aspect of, and the realistic aspect of like, hey, you gotta talk to your parents, you gotta think about this. And that's actually a huge part of what drew me to him, was because every way that I didn't know but wanted to be, I saw in him. He knew what he wanted to do with a career. He listened to positive books and like just very different from the sphere that I grew up with. And I didn't know that's what I wanted to be like until I met him. And I was like, wow, like all these he was a leader. He just every little category that I wanted to have control of in my life. So there was that aspect in my ear saying like, okay, let's like think about this. Let's figure out a plan. Like, if we're going to continue a relationship, like we need to start our journey. And he was never like, what are you doing? Cut your parents off. He was very supportive in figuring something out. And then at the same time, my brother was like, I want to come out. I just like, I feel like mom and dad know, and we're going to graduate college, and who cares? Like, who cares?
Yeah.
And at the time I was still in fear. I was like, I don't know about this, but he was like, well, I'm going to do it. So either you do it with me, or you basically don't. Well, that was my choice. Either we do it together, or he does it and I pretend like, oh, that, like, I wait for the reaction and I'm like, no, but I'm good. Like, that's not me. But then I'm like, so
that would be worse. I feel like that would be so much worse.
So I was like, all right, do it. And then so he did it. Like he came out to my mom first, and again, she's very Catholic, so she just didn't really understand it, and it definitely didn't go the way that he had thought it would pan out. And then he told
Nothing
my
ever
dad,
does, though,
and it was kind of the opposite. We both thought my mom knew, and my dad would be shocked. My dad was more like, okay, cool, and my mom was more like, wait, I don't understand. She wasn't not okay with it. She just didn't understand because of the way that she grew up Catholic. So, and she had met Aaron, and she had met my brother's significant other, and she's like, I don't get it. Like, this is what I associate to that sexual orientation through my, like, I think her brother was, and she just didn't understand it. And so, anyways, it all, like, long story short, like, that all panned out smoothly. But then it was also attached to that was like, okay, now we have to detach ourselves from allowing our parents to be codependent on us. And how do you do that when you feel the weight and responsibility to care for them? I mean, to a point, you felt this responsibility and obligation to, like, I mean,
your parents, so.
We genuinely felt like if we do this, we will crush them. They will not survive. They won't know what to do. But
well, wait, on that note, because in the back of my head, I'm thinking you and your brother are supporting your parents at this point in time, but you haven't come out and you're nervous about coming out to them. Like in the back of my head, I'm thinking, did it ever cross your mind? They have to accept us because we take
It
care of them. They don't
it
have a
okay.
choice.
It's funny you say that. It did. I mean, like Aaron definitely said, like, brought that home with
Yeah.
that exact thought, and he was like, I mean, what are they gonna like? What are they gonna do? And I think it was still that lack of. It was like, no, I don't want it to be that way.
Mm,
And you just don't understand. That was it. It was like, you don't understand. They will find a way to where it won't be okay, and then I'll be living in this situation that I
but you'll
can't
still be
get out
stuck
of.
taking care of them.
And so it was just this weird situation. And so my brother and I had to figure out a way to like release the leash, like just like
Mm,
let it make it happen. And then at the same time, like we were terrified of doing so. And so I don't even, it's weird because you want to say that that's a moment you would really identify with remembering. But I think it was like, wanted to do it and then block it out. It didn't happen. Like everything's cool. But it worked itself out. Like it was definitely rocky. The conversation was like pretty much geared towards, look, we're graduating college. Like I'm now at this point, we're out. I want to
mhm.
move on with my life with Aaron. My brother wants to move on with his partner. And we need to go on this journey. We got to do this. We're still going to stay local. So we'll still be able to help you and support you where needed. But this is just, I don't want to hurt you, but this is something that we have to do. And that
Right.
was the first time at the age of 23, I believe I chose to do something for myself, because every year leading up to that was like, I'm a giver. So it's like my instinct is like, how can I help you? What can I do? How can I do this for you? Of course, I'll be there. Yes, I'm a yes man, but my dialogue was never programmed to do that for myself. I can do this. I can do that. I can choose this. I want to be that way. It was never like that. Um, and I didn't really know that that was unhealthy. I just thought,
Yeah.
oh, I'm doing what I do, which is like
It's
how I was raised, and to cater to other people, but I think of myself last. And it really wasn't until Aaron started bringing that out to me where it's like, what do you want to do? Asking
yeah.
those questions, like what gets you passionate? Like,
That's
and what,
amazing. It's so important because if you're not able to, take what you want. I mean, obviously there's a way of taking that is kind of reprehensible, but to be a healthy person, to be in a healthy relationship, you have to give and take. And if you
you
don't
do.
take, like like the way I kind of figured it out was I someone says, why are you depriving someone from giving you the joy of doing something for you? And I was like, what? And I can't remember exactly when this took place, but it was, years back. um do you enjoy doing things for other people? Like, yes. Well, don't you think other people enjoy doing things for other people? And I'm like, yeah, I guess so. Well, then don't you think people would enjoy doing things for you? I was like, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
Should you let them do things for you? I was like, oh yeah, okay, I guess so. Like that's kind of,
Seriously.
I felt so stupid when someone had to lead me through that whole thought process years back. But it really is like you have to give as much as you take. And sometimes taking is more important than giving,
Yeah.
to be safe and healthy and happy for everyone.
Yeah. And I think it's so important to surround yourself with people that, I don't know, like have positive energy and that promote and provoke that type of thought. Because I don't think it's within human nature to like for people to. I mean, I say that, but I say that in my environment to want to see people thrive and grow and succeed. And so that was the first time I had encountered a relationship with someone, a relationship, any type of relationship where there was
Mhm.
that type of support. Not to say that I didn't get that support from my siblings or my parents or friends,
Mhm.
but it was different. It was, I can see the potential in you, but you don't see the potential in you. it's kind of my mission now to like drive that out of you. And that was like the first early on years of our relationship. So
Yeah, that's
we kind of
amazing.
we moved on, like we moved to LA, and that was like our journey of like, okay, we lived in this tiny studio apartment, but we didn't care because we were in Santa Monica and we were living life from, doing what we want. He was doing, he was acting and doing and being successful with modeling, and he was a
Hmm.
business entrepreneur, and he was figuring out his life, all while at the same time very encouraging to me. Even though at that time, I mean, I went from serving job to serving job to serving job, not knowing what I wanted to do, but like figure it out. Whether it comes to, even when it comes to fitness, like if I go to the gym and you don't like going to the gym, do something else. Like try swimming, try biking, like make friend groups. And I encourage that. And I can tell you, people are not like that in relationships. I
They should
don't
be.
believe they should
They
be,
should
but
be.
I don't feel like that's a common thing. I think,
Yeah.
when you're in a relationship, what I associated to it was like, no, it's you and me. There's
Yeah.
no one else. And so I shut out all of my friends. It was very like, you know, I, he was my identity. And he always told me from the beginning, look, I love you, but I don't want to be your whole world. I
Yeah.
can't be your whole world, because then if I were to then remove myself, it would kill me, that knowing that you're just, you don't know what you want to do. Your life has crumbled, and I can't be that for someone.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, there's a simple reality that I think in our culture, or at least in Western culture, maybe on whole, we don't deal with the fact that of death. And essentially, what he's talking about to some degree is death. And obviously, you know, not actual physical death, but in the grand scheme, if we dealt with death more, I feel like it would be easier to realize why relationships need to have other people,
yeah,
friends, family, why it's so important to have these other elements. Because I mean, there are so many partners. One person dies, an older age, and then the other person dies within weeks because that's their entire world.
oh yeah,
And
absolutely,
maybe at 70, 80, 90 or whatever, maybe it's okay, that's your world, because you're kind of coming to the end of your journey and you're like, okay, I'm ready. But if you're 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 even, I feel like you should not be prepared for your world to end, which means
yeah,
you need as much going on in your life as possible to be fulfilled and have a fully engaged life. And I feel like that's what he was talking about. I mean, my partner and I, we try to do the same thing, and I'm always encouraging her to um you know go out with friends, or whatever. If she is saying, oh, I'm going out after work, I'm like, great, have fun.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
it's just healthy.
yeah, yeah. And it's interesting because so when we started our, what I call authentic journey, because that's when I, at that age and at that point in time, I was now at this point in a relationship,
Mhm.
comfortable, figuring out this like discovery, which I think should normally happen when you're much earlier, but I was doing it much later. But again,
I don't know.
everyone's journey is different.
Yeah, everyone's journey is
20s to
different.
30s, 20s to 30s, typically people are going through this journey phase anyways. But
Hmm.
so I was going through that, figuring things out. And then I think that's sort of when I met you. I was already in real estate. And at
Hmm.
that point, I knew, like, I kind of like had it mapped out. I knew what I wanted to do. I knew the career that I wanted. I had all these identifying things about myself checked off.
Yeah.
And it's funny you speak of death, but we went through that journey ourselves. And I personally haven't gone through the journey of death, as most people probably have, but I hadn't with a loved one, not a parent, not
Hmm.
a best friend. Like, I think the closest people to me were my best friend's older brother, and then my grandparents, like all like three of the grandparents that I knew, and that was due to old age. So I never really
Hmm.
had as dramatic of a, or as intense of a situation until um kind of like when I met you. So at that point, like, so now I go from like discovering my journey and pretty confidently knowing what I wanted to do. And I had a
Hmm.
trajectory of like, okay, this is it. We had goals planned, like, or we had things that we wanted to do within the relationship and individually. Um, and then his father passed away unexpectedly through a motorcycle accident. And so within that journey was how to cope with, be a support system to someone who's, I mean, his that was his best friend. Like, you talk
Yeah.
about someone who's like, that's like, to me, my twin brother passing. So him and his dad were like very, very close. So when that happened unexpectedly, not only do I not have the experience or knowledge of how to deal with that myself, I have no idea how to support someone, even though we've been in a relationship for, at that point, I don't know, 6, 7 years or 5 or something of that nature, that I began my own, then a new journey of how do I deal with this? Like, and it felt weird to me because,
Hmm.
like, I'm not going through it. Why am I on a journey? How do I just like help you? And then we're
Yeah,
back
but you
to
are
how,
going through it. I mean, that's the interesting thing. Um, it, just so you know, it looks like you have your hand raised. You must have hit a button
there we
there.
go. I
Yeah,
saw that
that's
as
funny.
well.
All of a sudden, a little emoji
It's
pops up.
like,
I'm like, what is that? um, but I mean, that's one of the things, and like, I don't know if I just have seen this in other people or what, but if you're in a relationship, if you're really in a committed relationship, you're going through whatever they go through, whether you like
right.
it or not, and you don't go
Yeah.
through it in the same way, um, but you're going through it. And I think it was actually, uh, God, some years back when I was dating someone and her father died, and it was kind of, our relationship was kind of over, but literally, my mom was like, you need to break it off or get serious like now, because
Hmm.
you know this is where she's at, this is where you're at, and you need to make the decision because it's not fair. And then her dad died literally the next day,
Wow.
and I wanted to be there for her for that. And I think that was for me where I realized, you know, what one person goes through, the other person goes through. And because I really cared for her, I just didn't see myself with her in the long run. I felt like I've got to be there for her now.
Wow.
I want to be there for her now, because if I'm not, like, having her father die, and because she wanted to get married and have kids and have that end at the same time, I just felt like I can't do that.
Wow.
Like, and I really, she's happily married and kids now, and I was really happy. Every now and again I kind of checked to make sure she was doing well, um and but like, that was a tough moment for me, because here's someone I really care about that's going through something absolutely devastating because it was so unexpected.
Right.
um and although I know I'm not with them for life, how do I deal with this? And there's definitely things I could have done better.
Yeah.
It was,
It's tough.
but you have no idea,
Yeah.
which is, it sounds like what you were going through. You just had no idea. So you're just trying to figure it out.
Right. So then became a new journey of like,
Mhm.
okay, I'm here for you. I'm supportive. But in those moments, nothing is the right thing to say. Things become uh, unauthentic because I myself, I end up getting so in my head. So I overthought everything. Like, nothing was natural. Like, then when you feel like I'm in a relationship, like I can be supportive, I can be candid, I can just genuinely say, hey, I'm just checking in. How are you feeling? You become like, I at least became so just not a person. Like, I didn't know how to be. I didn't know how to be for him. I didn't know how to be for his family. I didn't know how to be for myself. So I overthought everything, and everything came across as like a tense, awkward first date, which was not. I mean, no one teaches you like, hey, these are the things, unless you go through it.
Yeah.
We didn't even have friends or family members or anything that were like, look, let me kind of guide you through, you like, just nothing. So it was this whole self-discovery, not just for him,
Right.
trying to like figure out life beyond this current situation. But then a whole nother thing, like episode of events kind of happened, and that's kind of like how we have our kiddo who we're raising. So in that same sequence of things, so his father passes, he has an older brother who has a kid, and the mom's not involved. And so the older brother was like, okay, well, I'm gonna get my shit together, I'm gonna raise this kid who's 2 months old. But Aaron's parents were helping to raise the kid, this kid.
Mm.
And even though his older brother was defying, like, okay, I need to step up and have this responsibility, wasn't necessarily the responsible person at that time or making responsible decisions. But then he went through a situation where he was coming home from work late at night, and crossed, and they live in Yosemite, so like lots of windy roads,
Oh
and late
yeah.
at night, and he crossed the double yellow line and killed 2 people oncoming. And so he went away for 5 years, and now you have this kid. Oh, sorry, so this was right before Aaron's dad passed, so that happened first, and then
Wow.
coming to follow. So then when that happened and he was away, it was grandma and grandpa raising this kid because the mom was not in the picture, and there was a whole battle through that. And then Aaron's dad passes away. So now you just have grandma raising this kid who was also raising Aaron's sister, who was 16, so a teenager. And so at that moment in time, amongst all the chaos and amongst all the just whatever it was, we just made a decision and an obligation to step up and help. And so we moved them down to live with us and
Hmm.
just be around, because at that point, like, and Aaron's mom at that point was not fully healthy.
Hmm.
She had her own health issues and complications. But raising a kid and then raising a teenager in that area, like, it's just a lot of factors. So we're like, I don't know how we're gonna do it, but we just got to do it. And even though in this moment of time, you're like, should we have paused and made some better decisions and not rushed into that? You just kind of did what you had to do. And so then that became a new journey of like, okay, co-raising. And again, this is a point in time where both of our careers individually were like, we knew what we wanted to do. And then it was like, pause, we got to do something different right now. And we always like work things out. I feel like it's doing these motions where it's like your hand is
Maybe
raised
it's just
because
following. Yeah.
I think
It's
so.
your hand raises, so it raises.
Yeah.
It's so
Yeah, it's
funny.
so funny. We're learning. Well,
Yep.
so nonetheless, like, we began this new journey of like, okay, what does this mean? We know what we're doing. We know the impact that we're trying to have right now. It's
Hmm.
just like create a safe environment, be like, have family close, be supportive. We'll figure it out.
Had
And
you prior to this, had you ever talked about having kids or wanting kids or anything
yeah,
like that?
yeah.
So,
So
okay, so the kids were kids were in the cards to begin with. It just not in this way.
or timing,
Or
because
timing, right?
being two guys, we can kind of choose when we wanted to
Yeah.
plan things out. And yes, it comes with a lot of money. But so with that being said, we knew from our 20s to 30s, we wanted to hit the ground and crush it and
Yeah.
thrive and figure things out and travel and, do what we wanted to do with our careers to set ourselves up. For me personally, and for him individually, we both saw the negatives of how our parents raised us
Yeah.
and stuff. Negatives lightly,
Well,
just in a way of what you would do differently, right?
mhm.
And so
Learning lessons.
we just knew what we wanted to do. And so um kids were in the plan, but it was like, hey, when we're 40, well, when I'm 40, he's 30,
Yeah.
38 or 37 or whatever, because I'm 3 years older, but somewhere down the line, like which to where I'm not even there yet,
Mhm.
because we feel like that would be enough time to like set ourselves up for a smooth family life, which is what we wanted. So it just happened sooner than later, but then the all of a sudden occurrence, just like you just didn't know how to balance everything. So that's when I met you. I was working in real estate, and I was working on a, I mean, I was on a top producing team. Like
Yeah.
I was doing well, and it was also in that moment where I realized like I had to branch off and go off on my own, because the person that I was working with didn't fully understand the shift in my life trajectory. So he knew it, he saw it, because like, you know, my kid would come with me to work and certain
Right.
things that you just have to do. But
Yeah.
he didn't get it, because he was like, you got to be here on time for this, and you get like and I get regiment and I get structure and certain
Sure.
things, and why are you stopping the networking? And that was a big part of the aspect of my career. That's how I met you, was
Yep.
networking events
Yep.
and meeting people and socializing. But I was trying to balance like home life, and how do I do that, work at an office, have my mind be here, but then come home and help out. If I'm here and I'm doing network events and this and that or the other, I felt selfishly like I was doing for me, and I was burdening and leaving everyone else to kind of figure that out on my own. And when
Mhm.
I say everyone else, I mostly meant Aaron. Like, while you're in a relationship, especially when he's going through what he's going through, now I then feel like, yeah, I'm gonna stay off and do my own thing, and still thrive in my career, where we're leaving you behind to care for a kid and this and that. And while now I'm like, certain balances of that, nuances are important, because you can't care for someone until you've taken care of yourself. You can't
Yeah.
be happy. You can't help someone be happy if you yourself aren't happy. You
Yeah.
can't help someone financially. So
And that
all these
goes
things
back
I
to that taking, because you have to take a certain amount for yourself to be happy, and if
yeah,
you're like the yeah, you can't save a drowning person if you yourself are drowning, and that really is everything, and that's why taking can be so important when done the
hmm,
right way.
right, right. So I think in that moment, and it was a bummer, because the person I was working with, we were really close. I had a conversation. I was like, look, like, it's not all about money for me, but like, you're on a team, you have your splits, you have your
Mhm.
company splits. And at the end of the day, I was leaving money on the table that was going towards raising a kid. So I felt like, okay, I'm 5 years in. I want to leave this relationship amicably, but I need to like start to do my own thing, so that way I can financially take myself up here faster. And if
Mhm.
if I'm continuing to do things in this situation, I can't grow, and I can't do
Mhm.
that. And it's not just a selfishly grow for myself. Now I have a kid associated to what I need to accomplish. And that didn't go well. It just didn't resonate. I think, like anybody, people take it personally, and it is what it is.
Well,
And
in that moment of trying to separate and trying to, create your own thing, I mean, it kind of, for me in my mind, just because I'm hearing it in the way I'm hearing it, I mean, it kind of goes back to, separating from your parents, and,
mhm,
it's a very similar situation. So,
yeah,
anxiety and stress, you obviously you don't care about your old partner the same way you care about your parents, but there's still an element of relationship there, and history,
yeah,
and then also being understood or not being understood, and
right.
that creates its own problems. um did you, in the moment, did you feel that you were um even could be understood, like if it was possible to be understood because of the situation,
Yeah,
or
I mean, I thought so. And that I think came at a shock to me. And it did somewhat follow a little bit later with an apology of like, look, I understand why you're doing the things that you're doing. Like, I wish you the best. But then it kind of went south again from there when it came towards
that's too bad.
business. When it came towards business and money, which happens a lot,
Yeah.
personal clients and whose clients are who. And there's a lot of nuances that, it just happens. It's when you're in a 5 year working business relationship, I guess it just happened. So went through that journey, and kind of went off on my own and moved companies and was kind of like, all right, I got kind of like you, like, I got to do this. I just got to do it. I have no choice. And luckily I found my successes in it and I found my stride in it. And then now I'm kind of just like, I know what I have to do. And so
Nice.
that's kind of where I'm at. But that took a while to get
Hmm.
there. And then within that journey was the thought of, okay, we're stepping in to help do what we got to do to raise a kid, but eventually his dad would be back in the picture, and this is what we want. Like, how do we plan ourselves for that? And that was always the plan, and that was always the thought of, okay, like, and it's a very unique situation
Hmm.
because so having him at the age of 2 and knowing that or sorry, probably beyond or before that, but knowing that once he hits 5 years old, things would be different, and we would just be uncles again, and this and that. And it wasn't until it started inching up closer where you're like, I don't really want to just be uncle. Like, I've helped raise this kid in the most identifying moments of his life. Like, then you start to become a little bit like a little bitter and like, this isn't cool. So just you go through your own journey, and Aaron went
Yeah.
through his own journey, and not being understood yet again, and feeling like, okay, I'm just doing for other people because it's just the right thing to do. But why do I feel selfish in my own thoughts that
No,
I
sorry. I'm just in that same vein. How much communication and how good at communicating and being seen are you and Aaron doing? Like, how good of a job are you guys doing with each other?
so I would say, I mean, pretty good at that point in time, pretty good with like feelings and thoughts, but at the same time, he was a lot better at it because he would express it and I would see it as valid because it's his family. And I felt like I had to not, like, I don't know, always look on the bright side kind of thing. Like, I felt like I had to. So then I went through this period of like not agreeing, but but very unintentionally, like
Yeah.
very much like, it's fine. Like, and I was a yes man. Like, I was like, I'll do whatever. Like, you go work. Like, you go to the office. You go network. I'll stay at home. I'll do this. Like, because I was thinking in my mind that that was helpful. But yeah, we were pretty transparent with how we felt about it. But we had like this thought of like, no, this will be good. Like, we'll still be involved, but we'll get to just be like uncles, and we will like make like he'll be fine.
Yeah.
Luck like he's 5 years old. It's not that he won't remember the early years, but like the bad times he won't remember. Like, blah blah blah. It'll be good. Fast forward a little bit to kind of like between then and now, person comes back in, it's has its rockiness, it's like situation, just it has its own like share of things that like
Right.
comfortableness, this is going good, this really sucks, all those types of emotions. And then doesn't pan out to now. Fast forward to now we know that this is it. Like, you know, if there was uncertainty before, it's very certain now. Like, he's our child. Like, yes, me, Aaron, and his mom like all co-raise him, but he's being raised by us. We are the father figures. Like, and it's cool. It's a great
Yeah.
feeling, and but at the same time, like, there was a lot of journey to get to that point. I mean, he's almost 8 now. He's doing baseball and he's doing football, and then you have all the parents, and it's just a whole different dynamic, and everyone now sees you as like,
You're
you
the
guys are
parents.
his parents.
Yeah.
So it's now, and I'm 34, the time where it shifted, where it's like, oh, I'm being seen, where it's like, that's something that I so wanted years before. But so that's what's cool about it, is like, it
Mm.
took all that journey, and those are all that, looking back, like, that's the same consistency that I wanted from high school to college situation to parent situation to post parent situation to first relationship to this nuance of like being a parent. So I went through this whole journey, and throughout the whole journey was like identity, know who you are, having a voice, like all these things. And it's crazy that when you're younger, even when you're not, and you talk to people or you listen to podcasts or this, that, and you hear like these things just come when they come, this
Yeah.
realization, like it only comes through experience.
Yep.
And, either being in the experience or seeing the experience firsthand, like you genuinely do get that now. You're like, okay, like you had to have gone through those certain things
Yeah.
to,
It,
for it to
it's a
make sense.
it's a weird thing for me on one hand because I used to, years back, like when I was in my 20s, maybe even early 30s, I was not a fan of like self-help, self-development books. Like I had always had a meditation practice and a mindfulness practice. I always was really hard on myself from the time I was a child. Um, so I looked at those books and I looked at like the practices or the industry around that as being unnecessary
Right.
because I didn't understand. It's like, well, anything you need to figure out, like it starts, with you and then it works outward. If you're having a fight with someone, well, it's like, well, what are you so aggravated about? Like, it doesn't matter why they're pissed off. Why are you pissed off? So like, I didn't get it. And now I think I think my Audible account, I have 177 read books. And I would say at least half of those are within the self-help, self-development, business, entrepreneurship, and all of that stuff. And then other books that I've read on Kindle or hard copy. So now I'm like fully steeped in all of that. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing for me because on one hand you have to go through it. On the other hand, the more you can read about it, learn about it, hear about it, when you're going through it, you'll have an easier time. Which
Yeah.
why recreate the wheel when you can stand on the shoulders of giants or
Oh,
whatever.
yeah. Yep.
And yeah, it's I mean it's also part of the reason why I'm doing the show. I
Yeah.
feel like we need more of this contextualized, so that we all can have an easier time.
Yeah.
And God, this came up the other day as well. Last week, a friend of mine posted a story. He was out in his neighborhood, moving the car on the street or something like that, and an elderly person who was going through like dementia or something had his ID, didn't have a phone, or his phone was dead and had no idea where he was, but he lived in the neighborhood and he was just wandering the streets. And so my friend is not a spiritual person, not a religious person. He and his wife, walked the guy home, and his wife, when they got there, was like, "Oh my God, I was going to call the police. I didn't know what to do. He just wandered off, and thank you so much," and all of that. Um, and his wife, who's a little bit more spiritual, sent him, like, went online and found a Ram Dass quote, which is, "We're all just walking each other home."
That's
And
cool.
yeah, and it's really cool. And he posted that, um, and was like, "Okay, well, in this case, it's real."
Yeah. Yeah.
But I feel like that's uh, and that's one of the reasons why we find a partner in life. It's like what Aaron has done such amazing job for you. It sounds like from the beginning of like encouraging you just to, be you. It's like, God, if we could just do that for everyone, like,
Seriously. I mean, I went through a similar journey of getting into the positive, like just positivity in books
yeah,
and listening to audiobooks, and
the
Aaron
whole
told
world
me,
of,
because he was so in tune with it and was so like, we have to do this together, listen to this is what I'm reading. And even though in that moment I'm like, that's awesome for you, like you get that, like you get it, and that's what I love about you. I was like, I don't understand it, but a lot of it, like, look, I didn't grow up in a bad environment or anything like that, but I just was not programmed. I was so programmed to be pessimistic and think about the negative before the positive.
Yep.
So when I started to discover these books and stuff, I just didn't click with me. I was like, I don't get it. Like, I don't know how thinking positively can manifest and change your reality. And I don't understand it until years later. And we always laugh. I always laugh about it because otherwise it'll kill me. I'm like, I'm so late to the train with you and these things. Like, now I get it when you pushed us to like want to do self-development for the relationship or personally or this or that. I get it. I'm ready now. And then he's like, oh, forget you. Like, I wanted you to be ready 2, 3 years ago. But
Yeah.
now it's funny.
But it's better
Now
late than
that,
never. I mean, it really is. It doesn't matter when it comes to you or when you're ready for it. It just matters that
yeah,
when you are, you embrace it, for,
yeah.
whatever it is, but
And a lot
especially
of
the good stuff.
those things are just like, they're just real,
Yeah.
like who you surround yourself with.
Yep.
And even though people have this belief that they can't get rid of toxic people in their lives, because most of the time the toxic people in their lives are tend to be family members or really close friends and or coworkers or whatever, where they feel like they can't detach, like you still have an aspect of control where you can create arm's
Yeah.
distance, where you can choose how much you let that person in, how much you let that person
Yep.
bother you. And it's not until you go through it where you create like your own, I don't know, like diagram of like, okay, these people can't leave my life because of who they are. So I'll just create walls to a
Yeah.
degree. These people I don't need in my life. I have to detach from them because it's just not an energy I need to be around.
Yep.
And it's that saying of like, you are a combination of the 5 people you surround yourself with,
Yep.
and they have to be you. The thing that I'm learning is you either have to find those people that bring that type of energy to you, but more importantly, because that isn't necessarily something you can always control. Like, someone might be like, well, how do I find those people? And that's a very valid question, but be that person. Like,
Yeah.
why can't you be that person? And I, for the longest time, was like, I can't be that person. Like, I'm not that guy. But you are. You
Yeah.
are in the littlest of ways. And of course, I say that now a little bit more confidently because I have a little one. So it's easier to be that.
Yeah.
It's like, if you're energetic, then they're going to be energetic. If you're like down, then they're going to be down. And it's like that with pets, right? Like, if you're like mopey, your dog is going to be mopey. So it's easier to like learn those
Yeah.
things with like a kid or something. So, but it's like that. And it's funny because now I'll listen to these things like nature, and it's just, I enjoy listening to them. I enjoy learning tidbits of things and relearning, and just being a constant student of like, how can I be better? Like what can I do? And it's the littlest of things, but I start to experiment now when I'm at the gym, because I see, like, I'm a very, like, now I like to be social and I like to have conversations with people. I like to meet people, but there's still a part of me that's reserved and shy, and other people will make the first move. It's more comfortable for me, but
Hmm.
I see the same faces. And Aaron, my brother, is very good with it. Like, he'll make friends with everyone at the gym, but they all tend to be like older souls and just older people. And it's funny because he has so many friends, but they're not at all who you think would associate to like his, like, when you see a type of person, you're like, I see a friend group, but it's like all ages, all like color, like it's,
Yeah.
and it's cool. But so now when I go to the gym, I try and break myself out of the comfortability of like shaking things up. And it's almost like that elevator experience where like you go into an elevator full of people and you just start to like have a conversation. I remember in college we had to do this, like get in an elevator and then start doing patty cake on the wall. It's like very odd, but just to
Oh, that's
get a
awesome.
reaction. And so now I'm at the gym and like certain faces I'll see all the time. And even though like you create these thoughts in your head where you're like, you know, I want, I don't know why. Like, I see this person every day. I feel rude to not. Why can't I just go up and say, hey, I introduce myself. I'm you in here all the time. You're killing the workout, yada, 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 whoever it may be. But every time, cross paths, nothing, cross paths, nothing. And you just make yourself believe that that person's not approachable or this or that. And it's like, why can't you be the person to make that move? Of course, if someone else makes the move, then you're like, oh, cool. Like of course
Yeah.
I'm open. And so I start doing this thing now, or I started where it's like, if I see a face, I will just make myself go up and I'll say, hey, and I'll like pay a compliment or something. Like, I don't know, there was this one guy, and I was like, hey man, like, I see you in here all the time. Like, at this point, it feels weird not knowing your name. Like, I'm Nick, blah, blah, blah. And then another person. So I'm training for the marathon, my first marathon.
Oh, congratulations.
And it's exciting and it's like terrifying and it's exhausting, but like I'm on the treadmill and I'm just trying to do my thing, like training. And there's this guy next to me and he's like an athlete and he's just like going for it. And I see him all the time. And so like, he hits his button, I hit my button, I'm super competitive. And so I was trying to keep up with the pace, but I enjoyed it. And it's like a stranger. I don't know this person, but I felt some type of a connection. Like, it was a cool camaraderie thing. And so after, I was like, I already knew in my head, I was like, I want to say something. I just want to be like, hey man, thanks for like the whatever. And I didn't. And so I was like, I don't know why you get in your head with this like thought of like, no, I shouldn't, like I don't know.
I think everyone does it though. I think
we tend,
it goes
we
back to
tend to
that
just,
self-talk. I mean, it's like, and what do you do with that self-talk? And, some self-talk, I think, gets easier because we're forced to deal with it.
yeah.
Um, and then other self-talks, like what you're talking about now, I think if we're not forced to deal with it, or we don't force ourselves to deal with it, then it just kind of continues to keep on going.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Like
it's like you want to create a better habit, a healthier
yeah.
habit of having it just being natural. Um,
It's funny because we met at a really cool networking event, and I want to try to get those guys on the show at some point in time, but
yeah.
we'll see what their schedule is and everything else. But it's funny because on one hand I love networking because I just love talking to people, but on the other side I don't like networking because I don't like being put in a situation where I feel like I have to talk to anyone.
Yeah.
Because I'd be
Exactly.
perfectly happy to just sit back and watch everyone else talk to each other and have no engagement, or end up just talking to one person for like 2 hours,
Yeah.
or longer, or less, or whatever's organic. And that, I think, is where I get hung up, um, and when I was doing those networking events, is because like part of me just did not want to be there because it
Yeah.
did
I
not
hear you.
feel organic. And then part of me loved it. Oh, I lost. Waiting for Nick to come back. There he is. You did it.
Shit.
Oh,
Of course that happens.
that's so funny. Um,
When that happens, does it stop the recording and then you just kick it back up
Nope,
again?
it's still recording. Yeah, so the
Oh,
whole
okay.
thing, it
Okay.
just cuts just to me. I haven't actually had it happen, but I'm assuming the way it works. So I may just leave this in just because it's kind
That's
of
fine.
funny. Um, so we'll see. I'll have
Cool.
to look back and I try not to edit, so we'll
That's
see.
fine.
Yeah,
That's me. That comes with my territory of things happening. So
that's
it's fine.
hilarious. No, it's great. Um, what were we saying?
So networking,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I'm also liking the show because it gives me an opportunity to reach out to people and say, "Hey, can I talk to you for, an hour or two?"
Hmm.
And I feel like I'll have an opportunity to speak to people the way I want to speak to people, that I don't necessarily get to do at a networking event. Or
Yeah.
at a networking event, they are talking to me because, there's maybe some business or, whatever, where I'm just like, you're just an interesting person. I want to talk to you. I probably
Oh,
can't do
totally.
anything for you or vice versa, but you're interesting. And
Yeah.
at networking events, especially with some people, they don't have the time to just get to know people. They,
Yeah.
they're at the beginning of their career and they have to make shit happen. And I don't want to get in the way of um of their, success kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
But it's funny, those are the people I too prefer to meet and build connections with and relationships with. And I felt the same way. With networking, it was a big aspect of what I did, but I had to quickly get like comfortable being
uncomfortable,
uncomfortable.
exactly.
And you like go through the motions of like, how many people do I have to meet? How many business cards? And that moment you're not really getting to know someone and why you would want to help them grow each other business. It was became this like, I don't know, a numbers game. Like I had to do it. Like, oh,
Yeah.
you're this type of person. Oh, you have this type of client. But then it was like meeting people like yourself and certain people where it's like you click and then you're like, I don't know how I can help you and vice versa. But now I feel more inclined to, if I can, I will. I will talk more about you to like a random audience because
Yeah.
I just genuinely like the connection that we have rather than, this person who has this type of title and I know nothing about them other than what they do, what type of clients they have. So
Right.
I started to try and shift towards just like meeting cool people. And eventually it'll take care down the line and, it'll benefit me somehow down the line. And
Yeah.
um,
No,
yeah.
and I think for me, I can't possibly know what the value someone has in my life until after they have that value. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
so if I find someone interesting, then the only value that person has and the only value that's important is, well, I find them interesting. and
Hmm.
if
Yeah.
if they find me interesting, then that's really all that matters. And if something else comes of it down the road, great. If not, that's life.
Yeah.
And like for me, that's a much easier, lower stress way. And it's also like you talk about earlier about like, toxic people in your life. Like I've fired all of my friends essentially when
Hmm.
I moved down to the West Side. I lived in the Valley for years. And about maybe 12 years ago, I moved down to the West Side in LA. And I just was like, I'm not saying I don't want to hang out with them. I'm just over here. So if they want,
Hmm.
they've got to come find me. Otherwise,
Yeah.
and it was interesting who made effort and who didn't make effort. And that told me everything I needed to know.
Yeah.
And life was good.
Yep.
And from that moment forward, everything in my life changed for the better. And now I have such an eclectic, amazing group of people in my life that is constructed purely on the basis of, do you believe in me? I believe in you.
Right.
And we find each other interesting, and that's it. And then anything beyond that is just
It's just
icing.
extra. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just extra. And I feel like it's such an important thing to have amazing people in your life, even if they have nothing to do uh, in your life other than they're just amazing people in your life.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's so important, I feel like.
It's important. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, but it was funny because you invited me to a networking event uh at one of the properties. I think this is when you were with your old partner.
Okay.
um and it was like a mixer, so it was
Right. 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 Right.
at a condo. I think it was
Yeah.
maybe a unit that was for
His
sale.
place.
Oh, it
I
was
think
his
it was at
place.
his place. Yeah.
Okay. And it was funny because part of me felt like I have a vivid memory of driving there, and like part of me's like, what the hell am I doing? Like, because I'm not interested in buying any property right now. And I have no idea, like, like I knew it was like a real estate mixture. And like, but I liked you, and I knew that on some level or another we were going to have some sort of friendship or something.
Right.
I don't know if it was going to be business. I don't know if I was going to be able to get you business or vice versa, but I was like, I like this guy and this should be interesting. And the whole time I was there, I think I met Aaron there.
Yeah. Yeah.
um really nice guy. And I could see, like, it was funny because I've picked people out over the years as like as role models for relationships, because I was single for pretty much my entire life. Every time I'd be in a relationship, like I kind of was like, I don't see myself with this
Mm-hmm.
person, and I was like, so whatever. And until I met my partner, who's now my fiance, like I just was starting to think, well, it's never going to happen. But just in case, I want to pick out people that the way they work together, or the way they interact, or the way their kind of energy is around each other, as kind of like my role model couples. And when I met him, I was kind of intimidated, because he's really tall, good looking, fit, um and he seemed to have it figured out, you seem to have it figured out, and I was like, good lord, I have a lot of work to do. Like
Oh
it was,
man.
and it was interesting because I'm sitting there having in this gathering, talking to you guys, and I'm having a very personal moment of like, I've got so much work to do. Like I've got to
Wow.
get my shit together. I've got to know where I'm going. And if I'm going to have a partner, like clearly these guys have it figured out. Like, and because there was just a comfort and an ease. And I see it in other
Mhm.
couples that are just like, they know who they are and they're good. And I'm like, I'm not even close. I was like, and it was,
Man.
so you and Aaron are one of those couples, like, even though I've not hung
Wow.
out with you guys, you know, I don't know if I've seen the two of you together, since that
Since then,
event.
yeah.
Um, but you guys stood out, like, okay, I see this working. And I have other friends, that are role model couples, and I don't think I would have met my partner and been able to have the relationship that I had with her, had I not seen couples like you and my other
Wow.
friends, and been able to pick out little things like that, which kind of goes back to why I think that it's so important to have amazing people in your life, for no other reason that they're amazing and they're in your life. Like,
Right.
because it does help you. It really does help you in your own life by some magical, thing.
And it can be in the weirdest of ways. Like it in those moments, like you might not identify like what attracts me to this person, but like there. I think that's what it is. I think it's just reading energies, and it's just like this feel like I like being around this person. I know that I don't know how, but I need to surround myself by this person more. And finding the control of like I can choose who I want to be
Yeah.
around, and meeting new people, and I like this person's energy and they make me laugh, or I don't know, like I see qualities in certain people that I would like to have. So
Hmm.
my by surrounding by myself with this person, maybe that'll rub off on me. And it's funny because like approaching 35, I don't think I've had more learning lessons than like this year. Like just identifying like, ah, that makes sense. And more like gumption to like just do things. Like I'm
Hmm.
doing a lot of random stuff. And it's funny because it's not like a midlife crisis thing, but it's just a why not? Like
Yeah.
I went through this pattern of like stopping myself from all these different things. And I could have choose to have all these reasons why I can't do something, can't have a kid, and he has baseball and he has football and he's going to do both, and now that takes up 4 days of my week, and I have a career and I have a relationship, and how am I going to do this and this? But like Aaron did the marathon, not last year because COVID, but the year
Hmm.
before. And he really wanted to set a goal to do finish the marathon before he turned 30. And so I bought it for him as a gift for Christmas, and he accomplished it.
Nice.
Felt amazing. In the moment of training and all this stuff, you're like, why am I doing this? I don't like running. I don't like training. What am I doing? But then in the moment, you just have that feeling of accomplishment and
Right.
like purpose and purpose when you're training. And it's like, and so after, even though he was in so much pain, he was like, I got to do it again. And I was like, okay, I wanted your
Uh,
first one to be just solely you, like something you can just like do your own thing because of everything that was going on. I thought it
Mhm.
was important for him to have his own alone time. But then I was like, okay, this time I'm gonna do it with you. And I just like it was one of those things that I was like, are we gonna like am I gonna stop myself? And then I just hit register and I'm like, all right, we're doing it. And so now I enjoy it because it's like it's something new and I never thought I don't know, I thought at 34 at this point in time, even though beforehand it was like, yeah, you can do whatever you want whenever you want, that I would just stop myself. And it's kind of like I'm living in this why not kind of
Yeah.
situation. And you know, while I love what I do, I want to continue to do more. And so years ago in 2017, a buddy of mine had gotten me like for a birthday gift a hot air balloon ride kind of
Oh,
type of thing.
cool.
And so we did that experience and met some cool people. And one of those individuals was this amazing woman, and she was going through her own journey of life. And when we had met her, she was sharing with us like why she's doing this hot air balloon is to like get over her fears. And she's starting to check off all these things on her list that she told herself she couldn't do, she would never do. And there's a whole lot like a lot of like now what I recognize in that moment, like I I liked the energy of that person, and I wasn't really sure why. And maybe it was just her vulnerability and her openness to share. Like she was like, "I lost X amount of pounds." Like when I met her, she was the heaviest she had said she had ever
Mhm.
been. And to this day, like she's a completely different person. She makes six figures. She's a very successful person. She's on the cover of like successful women's magazines. And so I would see that on Facebook and I would recognize that. I'm like, girl, you are killing it. Like from when I met you and you shared your stories of like where you were, um, it just kind of broke that wall down of like everyone has a journey, everyone's going through something. And then when you and I talked about it's helpful to see people break through that threshold of like, I know I can build my own success and whatever that way means to me, it's like, oh, I can do it too. Like that, she's just a regular person. And so, like, for example, she's built a lot of success doing stocks and options. And I
Mhm.
was like, I want to learn. I know nothing about it. Like this is foreign to me, but I want to learn. And so now I'm like learning that along with everything else. And it's just a why. Like, why not be open, pay attention to the relationships that or the types of people that you're meeting, and everyone
Mhm.
has something to offer and you could be that person to so many people in the smallest of ways,
Yeah.
like the gym, for example. Just saying hi to someone could build their confidence of them like, oh man, I didn't like, oh, I'm being seen,
Yeah.
you know.
I mean,
So it's
it's the number one thing I feel like we could all do for each other is just acknowledge that we see each other. Like if we
mhm,
just start there, I think that is a massive improvement from, head down, eyes averted and, just going about my day. I mean, and, maybe we can't be like that every single day, all day long.
right,
Sometimes maybe we do need to kind of be introspective and shut down. I know sometimes I go take the dogs for a walk and like I have headphones on and I'm like, God, I hope I don't run into any neighbors today because I just
yeah,
want to kind of be here. Um, and then other days, like I hope I run into neighbors because I just kind of want to, I don't know, it's a beautiful day and I just kind of feel like sharing, where I'm at. Um, but in any I try, and this is not always easy, but even no matter how shut down I am on a certain day, I try to be open where if someone they need maybe to talk to someone, I try to be open to that and know that, you know, maybe it will um maybe it'll get me out of my head, maybe it'll help
right,
me, maybe it'll help them. I have no idea what will come of it, but I just need to be open to it because I would want someone to be open to me if I needed to talk on that day, for whatever reason. And like I would say like it's definitely been an amazing experience at times when you end up meeting someone unexpected and they just change your whole day around just because you
right,
were open to the idea that it could happen someone might want to talk to you, and no matter how bad you feel, you're going to just stay open to that possibility. And then when they do, it's like, oh shit, like I got a new opportunity or a new, perspective or whatever. And it's kind of a cool thing.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's definitely a learned skill as well.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. I think,
anyone can be the positive person in your life, and they don't necessarily ever have to know it.
hmm.
you know
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's kind of a cool thing also. Like, I'm sure you guys
Yeah.
had no idea that when I met Aaron, that there was like, I had like oh geez, like I've got work to do.
No, not at all. But it's cool to hear, just because, like, we all go through those moments, and yourself, and what you're thinking in that moment when you meet a specific person
Yeah.
or types of people. But it's cool to hear the other side, and that's why when we were chatting, it was about this podcast and about this, like, I just thought it was so cool because that's an avenue that I was always intrigued about, right? Like, everybody has a journey, everybody has certain things that they define as their, um, just negative situations that made them who they are, right?
Yeah.
And it varies, and it can be something. It's like someone's day, something negative that happens in someone's day can be so different, but the impact can be the same across the board. It can be, for one person, it could be, I got a traffic ticket today and it just like
Yeah.
totally wrecked my day. One person, it could be, I had a best friend pass away. One person, it could be, I failed my real estate exam. So you just never know. But those moments shape people, and it gives some type of
Mm.
humility, and like, it, when that everyone's kind of going through something, you're kind of like all in it together.
Yep.
You just it's that feeling of aloneness and isolation. For me, that's one aspect. Like, when I meet people, I don't like to see signs that, like, someone is alone. So,
Yeah.
like, because you will never know. So, like, sometimes, like, it can be the most peppy, energetic
Oh
person
yeah.
in the room, and they feel the most alone. And so, just, I don't know, authentic, and, like, I don't know, when you meet people, it can change that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, the being seen, being understood is so important, and the and just acknowledging it sometimes is all that's needed. Like, you don't necessarily have to have an in-depth conversation either. Like, I mean, I've definitely had those moments with people at the gym, or um, you know, like, I go to rock climbing gyms, not so much because of the pandemic, but and so, if you send something, if you climb something that you've had a tough time with, and someone just arbitrarily says, "Oh, that's amazing," or, "Oh, I have the hardest time with that," like, it just validates or
Yeah.
changes, it recontextualizes, and just gives whole new meaning, and sometimes can be all the difference in the world. And like,
Yeah.
maybe that's the entire interaction is just 2 seconds, but yeah, it's an amazing how big of a shift that can make in your day or someone
Yeah.
else's day.
What do you think about, like, because I think experiences shape people, and obviously going through things, like, me personally, like, going through things helps you tap into, like, the thought of, like, self growth and self improvement, of, like, oh, I can do this. But for certain people, it's like, I'm get curious, where I'm like, what makes someone make that decision to say, hey, I want to improve myself. I can improve myself. I'm going to start listening to these types of podcasts, or these types of audiobooks, or start reading these types of books. Like, I feel like a lot of the times it's someone, um, like, discovering that first, and then you sharing that experience, and then you're like, oh, I can do that too. But, like, because how was your journey with that?
Well, I mean, because I've always been so hard on myself, and so determined to be my best from a young age. And part of that started with my grandfather. My dad's an existentialist and an atheist, and doesn't believe in any of the woo-woo stuff, doesn't believe in any religious, and philosophically he's very much in line with the existentialists and the materialists. Material just meaning um everything comes out of material. So
Right.
the mind and consciousness is nothing more than a perturbation or an anomaly in the um, kind of a bug in the system. So my dad is
Yeah.
he's very intellectual, very smart, and that really affected me because I have such a natural bend towards spirituality and
Hmm.
kind of mysticism and ephemeral things. So for me, on some level, as an athlete, as a martial artist, I've been doing it my entire life. But it wasn't until I think it wasn't until I fired my friends, and moved down to the West Side that I was like, I'm changing everything,
Yeah.
and I need anything, and I need all the help I can get because now I'm alone. I don't know who my friends are
Hmm.
anymore. I don't know if any
Hmm.
of these people are going to want to, make the journey over the hill, which in Los Angeles, for people who don't live in Los Angeles, that's a big deal, going
Yeah,
over
it
the
is.
hill or going to the East Side from the West Side or vice versa. Um, so for me, that was like the big shift because it was like, I need all the help I can get because I'm alone or I might be all alone, um, now. And I don't know if I can do it because at that time I was 32 maybe when I moved to the West
Hmm.
Side. This is like 12 years ago. So, well, I'm 35, so, or 45 now. I'll be 46 this summer. So I don't know.
Right.
In my early 30s, I moved down here. So however long ago, 13 years ago, I moved down here or whatever. Um, and like, I literally was just like anything and everything. What can help me? And I feel like, um, because I used to teach meditation in my early 20s and mindfulness because I've been doing it my entire life. And I didn't understand why people were so moved by it and why they were like I felt like if I said let's jump off a bridge, they were like, okay, great, which bridge?
Right.
It was weird. And I didn't like it. I didn't like the power. And I didn't understand it because I just always relied on myself. And my father
Right.
always kind of had that, um that kind of existential where nothing the connections aren't real. So I didn't trust when I felt energy between people. So I always like, am I crazy or is this
Hmm.
real? Um, and so I've kind of come to the conclusion for myself, because of the way I was like, I just need help. I need whatever help I can get. I'm not where I want to be in life. Things haven't gone the way I planned, and everything else that I wanted, I was able to materialize very easily, but my career was not working out the way I expected. And so I was like, what else can I do?
Right.
And um, in doing that, I also found that other people were going through the same thing. And I started, looking for because just my mind works on ideas. Like I want nothing but ideas. I don't really care who said it. I don't care where it came from, and it's only important where it came from if you're going to, put it in a paper.
Apply it. Yeah.
Yeah, apply it. Well, not even then because this is so ADD all over the place. But so a friend of mine was applying for medical school, and she asked for some help. Would you read these because she hadn't gotten in anywhere?
Okay.
And very smart, very capable, and she's 32 or 33, going back to college, and trying to figure this out and go to med school. So she's late in the game. And so I immediately start questioning some things. And one of the things that I questioned was a quote. And I'm like,
Right.
who is this person? I'm like, you cannot quote something. And this is an amazing quote. I love this quote, but you can't, in a paper, you have to cite who your source is. And you can't put this person as a source unless you know who they are.
Right.
Turned out this person was like a big leader for the white supremacist KKK movement.
Wow.
And she had no idea. And so I was like, well, we got to find a new quote because,
Yeah.
it's a great quote, but this person stands for everything you're against,
Right.
especially going to be a doctor. So at that point in time, we had to find a new quote for her. And immediately, the next 3 schools she applied to, she got, I think, waitlisted on one and got accepted to the other 2. So
Wow.
that quote, for based on what we could tell, it was being held back by that one person. So the advice that person was giving was solid, but in invoking his name, no good. So
Right.
like, that's why I believe, and I've always believed this, but that was just an example. Ideas, it doesn't matter where they come from, if they provide value and don't provide pain to other people or
Yeah.
harm to other people, even if where they came from comes from someone that might have been a horrible son of a bitch,
Right.
because there's still value there and you can still take that. You just can no longer invoke them. So
Right.
that's why I love the ideas more than anything else, because they lend themselves to empowering people regardless of where they're coming from or what their background is. So, and I have found that, like me, most people come to this stuff out of necessity. So if they want to really do self-development, there's something that happened in their life that is a wake-up call. And
Yeah.
it's some sort of awakening. And it could be spiritual, it could be physical, it could be mental, it could be some combination. But if they don't have an awakening to something that they are drastically missing in their life, something that they have come to determine as important or valuable, and they don't have it, and they don't know why they don't have it, and they don't know how to get it, then their only answer is to go, who knows? And
Right.
that's when self-development, personal development, business development, all of this, kind of, self-help books and podcasts and everything else comes into play, because you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink.
Yeah.
So, if the person isn't thirsty, it doesn't matter what information they're being shown. And I think that, the value, like Tim Ferriss is one of my favorite podcasts to listen to. He's very, very regimented in his interview. I feel like he has, one of the things that I want to do is I want to dig into some of the things that make people tick, and understand them and
Right.
see them beyond their accomplishments. Because if we just talk about the millions of dollars in homes that you've sold, we'll be like, okay, yeah, this person's amazing, successful. Like Nick is clearly a great real estate agent, but we don't necessarily see how you got there. And we don't necessarily understand why you're able to sell multi-million-dollar homes. And just
Yeah.
saying that you have a system and you work it, well, anyone can say that.
Right.
And there's an element to your story and why money was important to you that comes alive when you talk about your parents and living with you, and going through college and needing to pay your way through, and so of course you're going to be successful, because you have to be successful, because that's a valuable thing to you,
Right.
and you're going to figure it out. And so if other people have that same need, they're going to listen to this and say, oh, I get it. This is why I need this.
Right.
And I just have to do it. Like there isn't like, because people who aren't successful, I feel like the only reason why they're not successful is because they haven't found the way, and they've probably had enough excuses to
Yep.
never feel willing or able to do
Deserving.
whatever
Yeah.
it takes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you're not willing to do whatever it takes, then you will not get there.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean you have to compromise yourself as a human, as a moral, ethical person. It doesn't mean you have to betray anyone or shit on anyone. All it means is, you know, for instance, I sell insurance to make a living right now. Like I would love to do this full time and have events and work with people and do nothing but that. But that's not where I am today when we're
Right.
recording this. And if you had told me 7 years ago, I think I've been doing insurance for like 6 years now. So 7 years ago, if you told me that I was going to be selling insurance, I would say, go fuck yourself. There's no possible way. It's not going to happen. It's never going to happen. That's like, sounds like the most miserable thing that I could ever imagine. And it turns out it's been one of the greatest learning lessons and the most valuable things I've ever done from a business standpoint, because it allowed me to learn things, hone skills that I wasn't even aware that I had, and develop an understanding of other things and other business practices that I'd used before, but I don't know if I knew why I used them. I just used
Right.
them because, I grew up in a business family and we were entrepreneurs and that's what we did. And all of a sudden, doing insurance has forced me to look at, I can't think of any specific examples right now, but it forced me to look at certain things in a different light and go, oh, okay. So I feel like I'm ready to move on now and ready to move to the next chapter. But I got to do what I got to do. And
Yeah.
what I got to do right now is sell insurance for, maybe another day, maybe another week, or maybe another year. And that's what I mean by you have to be willing to do whatever it takes.
Yeah.
And for everyone, that's going to look different. And it doesn't mean you have to, sell your soul or compromise your morals or ethics or anything like that. And I've seen, I was actually coaching someone, and they were a good friend of mine, or still are a good friend of mine. And part of the problem was we were too friendly, too, and I don't know. I feel like I failed him because I wasn't able to get him to see that I understand you don't want to do this, or you don't think this is the way it should be, but this is the way it is. And as soon as you accept that, you will do it, and you will get past this, and you will move past this bump in the road. And he ended up moving past it in his own way, in his own time. But I think because we were friends first, and he wasn't able to listen to me as an authority, in you've got to do what it takes. And I don't think you're getting it. And he didn't hear me. And so I feel like I failed him because of that. But it's funny because as soon as he was in a position where he had to figure it out, he did figure something else out, and he did, get past that bump and, get to the next, place in his journey. So,
Yeah. I think that's so impactful. I think you have to surround yourself with at least one person that's willing to tell you the truth, that's willing to tell it like it is. And we ourselves have to program ourselves to better be that person for other people. Because there's a balance. You don't have to be a dick and you know dish it out in a way that's like very blunt, but just in the way of like being honest and telling people like, hey, you gotta shake out of this. Like you gotta get your shit together. You gotta do this if you want to change. We so desperately need people like that in their lives, and I don't think there's very many people that are comfortable enough to do that. Um, Unless it's just within human nature. Maybe
Yep.
they've gone through things where they're like, look, I'm not a bad person. I'm telling you this because look, take it for what you like, take it or leave it. But I think this is what you need. And not a lot of people do that. And it's funny because like I see friendships like that now. Like you want to be
Yeah.
around people that aren't just going to tell you what you want to hear. And I too don't want to know. I no longer want to be the type of person that just tells people what's going to make them feel
Yep.
comfortable. I want to make an impact by telling people things that are actually going to shape them to be better people,
Yeah.
whether it's work or personal.
And I think it's a fascinating thing when that happens, because when that starts to happen, I feel like your entire friend group changes, or at least that's
Hmm.
what it was for me. And all of a sudden, like, the people that you're closest with are the people that are the most honest with you, and
Hmm.
they clearly care for you the most. And the people who aren't as honest, or aren't as forward, aren't as close with you.
Hmm.
And then conversely, if you're really honest and forthcoming with other people, if they're ready for it, then they will become closer with you. If they're not ready for it, they won't cut you out because they know you're right or they know you're valuable. But they may not be able to handle it because it's
Yeah.
a little too intense. It's a little too
Yep.
much. And so we've got to learn. I've had to learn how to back off, and be like, yeah, they don't need to know this right now.
Yeah,
you know
yeah, definitely.
um
Well, it's even similar and interesting because like now with little man, I'm like I wish people would learn how to have this self-discovery at an earlier age. Like I have my own thoughts about like schooling systems and education and what I think would be valuable for learning, at younger ages. And in the same vein, I see friends and parents and certain people that just do it like that are like, oh yeah, I have a 13, 14-year old and they're learning entrepreneurship at a early age, or
and it's
I have
easier
my
for
five.
them to now, but it's not
Yeah.
like it
Oh
was.
yeah. Yeah,
I mean, just
exactly. It's
in the last 5 years, the world's changed for what an entrepreneur can be
Oh
and how
yeah,
to do
and
it.
even the accessibility to self growth, right? Like, okay, someone can throw on AirPods and be totally discreet and just it's free. There's so many tools and resources out there to just
Hmm.
learn and develop themselves without anyone ever knowing. It's not seen as this like negative association of like I need to work on myself.
Right.
That means that I'm not in a good place or I'm depressed. Okay, like I'm acknowledging that and I'm aware of that. I want to get out of it, so I'm going to do things to try and get myself out of it. It's more widely accepted, but even with that I'm like, you got to pick and choose your moments. But and it's like, as much as I want to be like, read this, learn this, and then other people might be like, whoa dude, way too young, 7, 8.
Yeah.
There's moments where I realize like they're learning lessons, like okay, you know and that's the cool thing about like learning how to be a parent is like you find these moments that are good moments to teach the things that you so desperately crave to learn about
You're just
yourself,
waiting to give
and
it
you're
to
just
them
waiting.
when they're ready. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's just like, yeah, it's not forced, it's not pressured,
Yeah.
it's just like, hey, look at this situation like this.
I think there's gotta be, I think, a new school system or a new kind of cultural movement towards becoming more self-aware and more accepting of ourselves at an early age, because the faster we can accept ourselves, the easier and faster we can accept other people.
Yeah.
And I feel like in implementing some sort of cultural shift where we are able to accept each other, this whole idea of council culture is going to go away. the all the hatred and vitriol and side picking, is going to go away, because we really truly are in this together, whether we like it or not. We're on. This is a thing for me, and um, I'm gonna brand some of the episodes starting with starting I think on episode 3, that we live on the same earth, and we drink the same water, and we breathe the same air, and that's just our reality, and we need to wake up to that, and we need to stop taking it for granted. And once we see that, we'll realize we're in this together. We're on the same spaceship traveling through space at 28,000 miles an hour, spinning around a big glowing ball. Like it or not, this is our reality. So we need to accept that, and then I feel like everything else can come.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
We've been talking, I think, for like 2 hours now, so it's a little bit longer than expected, but it's been awesome. So
I
at some point
appreciate
in
it.
time, perhaps we could do a round 2, because I think maybe there's more philosophizing, and there's probably maybe even more laser focused on certain areas or elements. But this has been great.
I would love to. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would love to be back on. It's been awesome. It's been awesome.
Thank you for being
So I
here.
appreciate it.
Don't forget to leave a comment or a review. I'd love to hear your thoughts. New episodes every Tuesday. And for short clips from each episode, check out YouTube. Thank you. And don't forget, your life story is yours to write and rewrite as many times as you want.